Zambia is moving to the polls on the 13th of August, and there are many political leaders who are jostling for power. So we wanted to give an opportunity to every politician, those in power now, those that are jostling to come to power. Health is a political discussion, and that's why my next series of podcasts is called The Politics of Healthcare. Because if we can have a health Zambia, then it's easier to develop our people. My first guest is Dr. Brian Mushimba from OPP, or Organized People's Party.
In the first 5 years, we'll create minimum of 4 million jobs, good paying jobs, sustainable jobs. Government has to continue putting money in healthcare so that we can broaden it and provide it for our citizens.
What are you going to do about vaccination? What are you going to do about corruption in the health sector? Hello, welcome to our Think Talk podcast. My name is Professor Wilbrod. As usual, we are back with an exciting episode, and we know that when we talk about politics and health, these things are linked, and you have heard me talk about this. So in this podcast series, we wanted to talk to the political leaders, the community leaders, including you, the people of Zambia. What kind of health services, what kind of things do you want your politicians, your mayors, your presidential candidates, your MPs to do after August 13th? And today our guest is a very, very special guest, and I'll ask him to introduce himself. Welcome, Dr. Brian.
Thank you very much for having me, and my regards to everyone who's tuned in or who's going to listen to this conversation.
Excellent. So somebody might ask, who is Dr. Brian Mushimba?
It's an interesting question. Dr. Brian Mushimba is a boy from Kankoyo. I grew up in Mufulira, and my formative years, education, helping my mother at the market, local market. She was a marketeer. My father worked in the mine nearby. So I'm a child of the mines. In fact, the mines paid for my education all the way up to the university when they sent me abroad to train as an engineer. I'm an engineer, and I've worked in the engineering space for 25 years and 5 years in the public office as an elected member of parliament and as a minister. I'm a family man. I'm married. I've been married to my wife for many years now, almost 30. We have grown children, and that pretty much sums up who Brian Mushimba is. In terms of the people that may not know who I am.
Excellent. And you are standing for presidential elections for the August 13th, Dr. Mushimba. Can you explain a little bit about which party you are standing in and what this party stands for?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So we, the Like Minds, came together last year to organize ourselves with the understanding of the political ground at the time being the opposition in disarray and not giving a lot of direction to the voters in terms of an alternative voice. So we gathered ourselves, put our heads together, created a vehicle, and the idea was for this vehicle then to be utilized by many of us and advance it as an alternative in these elections. And we've gone ahead with that vehicle, which we registered last year, called the Organized People's Party. And as per the name of the party, we are offering an organization to how we structure and govern ourselves, unlike any other time in our history. If you look at the 62 years of that we've been independent, the 7 presidents that we've had, we still have systemic challenges that still are with us. You know, we still have infrastructure deficit. We still have a lot of our people going to sleep hungry. We still have our youth unemployed. We still have lots of systemic challenges that we've been grappling with, even after 62 years of independence. A country that is fairly wealthy. We have mineral wealth, we have lots of natural resources, we have youths that vibrant and can work. So how have we organized ourselves in such a way that we have failed to address some of these issues to do with governance and development? And we feel, and the part of our formation of the political party, we want to offer a different narrative and a different perspective, essentially redoing the foundation of this country so that we can start building it one block at a time, one brick at a time, with the right material, the right blueprint by those that know, so that we can change the trajectory and permanently address these systemic issues. And as a trained engineer myself, I'm a systems person, a systems approach to anything that I do. You know, you have to go to the root cause of a problem, understand the problem at its root, and address it there. We have been massaging symptoms, and this has not worked for us. That's how we find ourselves here, 62 years after independence, 7 presidents, still with the deficits that we see. So that's how the Organized People's Party was formed. That is our proposition to the people, is to consider us because we bring a different set of leadership, a different set of values, the agency and a systems approach to permanently address the challenges and move our country into the first world country in our lifetime.
Thank you very much for explaining. So, this podcast is concentrating on the health matters because we think that the development of the country hinges on its health people. The people that can work, the productive health sector must work. And so health is a very big pillar. So in your first 100 days, what are some of your priorities, especially around health, that you want to achieve in the first 100 days? Could you just list some of them and then we can go in detail?
I think the major one, Professor, is the issue to do with drugs procurement. This country has had a lot of issues with the procurement of drugs. We as the Organized People's Party, OPP, feel that the solution and our initiatives for the first 100 days around drug procurement is to decentralize drug procurement so that we are not procuring in one location, one point of failure, and when issues come, they impact everyone because you have one point of failure. We want to decentralize in the first 100 days so that procurement of drugs is done at the local level, Professor, because the local needs in terms of drugs differ from national needs. You're going to have a location where, maybe they don't need to procure a lot of heart medication. In that community, there is limited need for drugs to do with hearts or heart health. So if you decentralize to a local level, you see that the need to procure the right medications that center around that community then is enhanced. And I know this, that there are certain drugs that expire because the uptake is very, very, very limited. This is a weakness when you centralize procurement because you're going to procure maybe things that are not needed by the local communities. So if we take this down to the people buy what they need. This is our commitment in the first 100 days, that one will solve the issue of lack of drugs, will solve the issue of the appropriateness of the drugs, and we're going to empower communities to buy the drugs they need and make sure that local hospitals, local clinics, local dispensaries have the right drugs to make our communities healthy.
Thank you very much. Viewers, if you are just joining us, we are discussing the issues of why we think health is politics, and your politicians, your leaders must discuss this. And we are with Dr. Brian Mushimba, who is explaining to us what they will do in the first 100 days. So, Doc, one of the things that you see has been an issue the last 5 to 10 years is that initially we had a very big shortage of health workers. But as a matter of policy, there was direction to actually increase the number of training schools in order to increase the number of doctors and nurses and many people. So the last few years, a lot of medical schools have opened and a lot of graduates have come out. And also, quite surprisingly, we still don't have enough of those in the hospitals. However, we do have a number of those graduates who are not employed. And as we speak, doctors are now working as younger drivers, nurses are working as cleaners, and things like that. These are the HR that the health system really, really requires. Me as a doctor, I cry because this is what we were looking for. Now you are wanting to come in power and you are promising that you do something about this. Can you just tell me what you do to tackle this challenge? These unemployed doctors, unemployed nurses, what would you do when you come in office, Dr. Brian Mushimba?
Right now, when you look at patient to doctor to patient ratio, it's extremely worrying, and we can't continue like that, especially when we have trained professionals that are out there outside the system. I think as a matter of urgency, the Organized People's Party or PP government will have to tackle this head on. And we don't even need to do anything extraordinary. It's just the right leadership with the right priority, making the right decisions. If you look at currently, for example, even the CDF that we have, which when I was a member of parliament was at 1.6 million per year. That 1.6 million per year with 2 members of staff in my constituency office and an extension of the local council that was helping with procurement, we struggled to implement projects, and many times central government used to come and mop up that money that was unspent. This current regime, current government, increases that almost 40 times without increasing the capacity to effectively manage this. So what that has happened, what that has done is opened that CDF to a lot of abuse. We've seen political cadres organizing themselves as cooperatives, accessing this money through some type of loans and never paying back. So just looking at a government program like that, which is already budgeted for and resources released, if we just, Professor, took 5 million kwacha from that 40 million kwacha CDF, we can employ per constituency 40 to 50 healthcare workers. These are nurses, these are doctors, these are pharmacists, 40 to 50 per constituency. You agree with me? Across 226 constituencies, that mops up significant number of trained medical professionals with good paying jobs to provide services in local communities and reduce or shrink that disparity between doctor and patient or healthcare and patient.
We are still with Dr. Brian Mushimba, who is a presidential candidate for the OPP, Organized People's Party. And he's been explaining to us what they'll do in the first 100 days. And as we were continuing to ask these questions, something became very clear that he has proposed what government can do. And I wanted to add a question about the private sector, because in our view, the future for funding cannot just rely on the private sector, on the public sector. We want the private sector in Zambia to grow as well and to employ doctors and nurses and start more services that we are actually now getting from India, but starting them locally. So Dr. Mushimba, what would you do in the private sector to help them thrive and employ more doctors and more nurses and other health workers?
The answer to that for us as the Organized People's Party anchors on the general governance system and economic system that we're going to deliver for the country. You know, your question about private sector in healthcare touches on other private sector players in the country and how you're going to grow, for example, our small medium enterprises, how you're going to grow our major industrial players in the country. The largest issue, the biggest issue that we have in our economy, especially to do with our local citizens that are entrepreneurial and are providing services across sectors, is access to capital, cheap money, so they can borrow and scale. You know, people have initiatives and great ideas, but when you go around, the other day I was talking to a young man who makes shoes in Mandevu, and if only he was capacitated with a little bit of capital, he would scale that and he would employ a few more people around him. And before you know it, he's paying more taxes, has more disposable income, is able to take care of himself, his needs. He's going to create a demand for certain goods and services because he has more money, and those other people jump into the space to provide those goods and services that are being demanded. Before you know it, you have this domino effect and economic activities start increasing. So specifically for our private players in the health sector, it will be the same. Government will be open to engaging them. Government will be open to collaborating with them. Government will provide the environment, the capital, and the infrastructure for them to take advantage. And when they take advantage and they're able to scale, they're able to absorb more doctors, more nurses, and more other professionals, including even at the shop floor, cleaners and others, because they will have the opportunity, they will have access to the environment that predisposes them to expanding their operations, to entrenching their operations, to capacitating them to do more, with whatever they have. And when they're able to do more, they're able to improve themselves, they're able to capacitate themselves, they're able to specialize more. We stop having people to go outside the country for certain treatments. I think that is a commitment that we give, that we will go sector by sector and unlocking certain capital and financing that is required in those sectors, because when you provide capital and financing at a rate that citizens can access, you actually are allowing them to participate in the economy. Right now, our economy is foreign controlled. Even in the health care sector, if you look at the private players in this space, many of them may not be Zambians. It's because Zambians have been locked out because they have no access to capital. And when government gets close to the people and provides these avenues, you see the explosion of the opportunities in the country among citizens, and citizens start participating in the economy in a meaningful way.
Yeah. So you remind me, like in a country, there's another country I'm associated with, it's called Norway. One of the things that I've seen is that they are really striving to bring unemployment almost to zero. And when I was asking someone here, they were saying the government is keen to get taxes out of those people. So they don't look at as, to have unemployed people would be very expensive because they won't be paying taxes. But if you can get people into work, then you can force them to actually pay taxes. So that's a group which is sleeping and not contributing. And also we see even for NHIMA and other places that the private sector or the people who are working on their own, they're not able to pay taxes. How do you apply such a principle to make sure that our unemployment rate goes down? And this applies to all the other sectors as well. I think you have highlighted some of it, but just explain this principle of not being happy with people remaining unemployment. It's not just a problem for them, but it's for the country as well.
Correct. In fact, as the Organized People's Party, we are proposing that in the first 5 years we'll create minimum of 4 million jobs. We believe that when you create these types of jobs, good paying jobs, sustainable jobs that provide security for your citizens, they have disposable incomes. They will start spending that money. When they're spending that money, they are creating a demand for goods and services that will have other people jump into that space to provide those goods and services that are being demanded. That means more entrepreneurs in the space. That means more business in the space. That means more people to tax, more companies to tax. And when you have that many economic activities starting, you are going to also create the free market forces will jump in, and competition and competitive forces will take hold. And when competition thrives, there's improvement and efficiency in the market that actually start driving prices of things, goods and services down. That's the economy that we want. But for us to create that 4 million jobs, we are looking at majorly two areas: agricultural revolution and industrial revolution. Under agricultural revolution, we have commodities that we are targeting, such as cotton, such as maize, such as fisheries, development such as cattle, castor bean, sugarcane. Those that we've identified as strategic commodities, as strategic raw materials. We will organize the sector by identifying under a government program certain farmers, put them through this program, have access to financing that they need, so we can give them financing and promote the mechanization and all the other things that they need. So this agriculture is year round. It's not only dependent on rains. if you give further detail in terms of just one of those commodities, maize production, we have under the OPP manifesto a plan where 10,000 farmers, commercial farmers, medium farmers to commercial farmers that are going to be identified under this government program. That will be facilitated, that will be promoted, that will be financed. Each one of them being asked to cultivate 100 hectares of land. Each one of them to cultivate that much land will need 50 workers. When you compound all that, that's 500,000 jobs already created there. You're going to have so much maize for local consumption as well as for export market. That becomes a raw material. That can be used in biofuels when you start a second layer of industries. That can be used for other things as maize is processed. I can go to cotton, for example. We just reopened Mulungushi Textiles. We have not much cotton in the country. So where are we going to get the cotton when we're opening industries that can't be supported with the raw materials? We will invest in the cotton production again. There are 4 provinces in the country where cotton can grow. We will get close to the people. Through that mechanism again, we identify commercial farmers, give them enough land, promote them, finance them, and capacitate them. When they farm and they give us that lint, we will now use that lint from its raw form all the way into a garment production. That cotton seed will be pressed for cooking oil. And the remnant of that, when you press that oil out of the seed, will be seed cake that will be used in our animal feed, for example. That cotton industry will create 2.4 million jobs even before the downstream value additions are added to this. So you start seeing all these jobs from these raw materials and commodities that are strategic to us. And the second layer of the processing that is required. And this is even before we start talking about the mining, the tourism, and other industries. These are real jobs, paying well. You start bringing dignity to a young man who wants to marry and settle down because he can count on a job that is going to have something our parents had. The OPP government is giving this gift to the people. And when people have money, they want things. Those things means more people entering that space to create those things. It means economic activities take off. When they take off, there's a broad base for taxation, there's a broad base for people being productive. People are happier when they're able to access these things. And before you know it, like I said, the market forces will kick in, cost of living will go down, and everyone will feel a part of this. Everyone will feel they belong. Everyone will be happy and productive. This is what we are offering as the OPP, generally, in terms of employment creation and the economy that is going to be felt for the people on the ground, not on paper, as it is today.
Very interesting, very, very interesting discussion. I wanted to move quickly to the issue of financing the health sector. Because for me, I like that economy. If it's good, it's running, people are getting paid. The good thing is that even their health is going to be provided for. So that would be a good and healthy country to live in. So it's good to listen to your manifesto and what you want to do for the people in general. But let me move on to this issue of health financing. So, Doc, we have had a big problem in the health sector, especially the last few years. The USAID government literally was funding the HIV program. For many years, for over 20 years, they have been paying for our ARVs, especially, and some of the testing. And so government has been trying to raise the bar to contribute, but we are still very far. And before we could close the gap, the government found that the US actually changed the policies of the new president in the US, and so the aid was cut. So as we speak, we are discussing contracting some kind of contract with the US government on certain conditions to finance our health sector. But let's begin generally before we discuss that contract. How do you go about to change this, where the government takes responsibility for its own people's care? It reminds me of a household. Like if the husband, including the wife, if they can't provide for their own house, they're depending on the neighbors, you are opening doors to very many things you would be very discouraged and very disappointed with in the future. when the neighbor demands, for example, to get the whole house because he has paid for your meals or something else. So what would you do to safeguard the health of the Zambia and own it ourselves?
That's a very good question. In fact, Professor, when I was a government minister, I sat in a meeting one day, and the Minister of Health, the acting Minister of Health at the time, was speaking to us on, I think it was around the COVID time, and the help that we were going to get in terms of the vaccines. And I posed a question then to say, there's a lot of dependence and reliance on partners coming to our aid. And I didn't feel comfortable as a citizen. I was speaking as a citizen, not as a minister. I don't feel comfortable when the things that I desperately need to be healthy, are controlled by somebody else. And they can take it away from me when they choose, or if I speak a language they don't like. We need to own this. How do we own it? And I gave an example of HIV/AIDS drugs. We have 1 million plus of our citizens that rely on these drugs. If today someone said, I'm not sending you those drugs, what do we do with our people? So I agree with your question. And we as the OPP government, what we are saying is, we have not organized ourselves in a way to make ourselves self-reliant in many of these instances. And our proposition is to do a hard reset, have the right conversations with the right people and experts that understand these things, so we can correct these once and for all. Our immediate proposal around healthcare and healthcare financing is two-pronged. Number one is government has to continue putting money in healthcare so that we can broaden it and provide it for our citizens. Secondly, there's this concept of community health financing that has not been explored. If you look at NHIMA, for example, NHIMA is a government program, a very good insurance scheme, but it is overwhelmed. We have about 1 million, slightly over 1 million people in gainful employment that are contributing to NHIMA against a population of 22 million. This is not going to work. There's just not enough people putting money in there. What we are proposing as the OPP government is to leave that NHIMA alone, allow the 1.2 million to continue contributing, and allow them and their family to access it. In fact, when we speak about more jobs being created, we're going to have more people on NHIMA contributing into NHIMA. So it will be robust. It will have the muscle to take care of its members. How about those that are in informal sector, that do not belong to NHIMA, that are not paying into NHIMA, that are overwhelming NHIMA now? Can we move them to a community health financing mechanism? What do we mean by that? If we asked a household to pay 100 kwacha per month towards guaranteed health care to add to what government is already putting into that space, do you know what that does? That, we did a study in Ndola. 100 kwacha per household in Ndola raises $600,000 per month on top of what the government is doing. That amount of liquidity can buy medical equipment, can buy reagents that you need in labs, can buy all the drugs that you need, can buy all the specialized treatment that you need. And it's only 100 kwacha per household. And you move these households away from overwhelming NHIMA into this other facility that government is paying into, and they're also paying into on a shared basis. We are proposing as the OPP that within 5 years, that community health financing mechanism will be up and running, and everyone will feel they belong, and everyone will see the impact, because the drugs will be there, hospitals will have, amazing resources to offer what they know best to the community. And NHIMA will be left alone to survive, because to target a certain population as the rest of the people benefit from this other scheme.
Interesting, and I think we can go a lot deeper in the NHIMA discussion. Actually, I want just to ask you one more question on NHIMA before I move on to the last segment. So, Doc, NHIMA, I think your solutions can help, and I think we need to think again about many more other things that we can do to help NHIMA. But as we speak, many health sector providers have not been paid billions or millions of kwacha or dollar, whatever equivalent you want to put, to be given their money that they have already serviced people for. So it means that the money is being held by NHIMA for that private sector that needs to thrive. So, but they still need to pay their doctors, their nurses. So basically, the health sector cannot thrive in the environment where the money is being held by NHIMA. And I think this is a discussion that is quite sensitive and difficult. But I want to ask you, what would you do in the first 100 days when you come to help NHIMA, at least even as you are restructuring, to pay the people it already owes? Because now businesses are grounding. Over to you.
That's a very good question. Now, the reason governments exist is to backstop many of these issues and guarantee them to ensure government works, people are happy, and systems are flowing. So when you have NHIMA being overwhelmed the way it has been, because we only have over 1 million workers contributing to it, and it's been servicing 22 million citizens across the country, government has a responsibility and duty to step in, to make sure that where NHIMA stops, government says we'll pick the rest up so that the liquidity required for NHIMA to settle the claims is provided. And as OPP government, when we form government, we will make sure that we look through the budget and move monies through the budget and ensure this debt, this backlog is cleared. Once we clear it, and as we start expanding employment opportunities, as more people start contributing in NHIMA, into the scheme, as we move some people from the scheme to this other scheme I spoke about, you start seeing that the sustainability of these schemes are going to be assured. But government has a responsibility always to guarantee certain strategic activities in the country. And one of those is ensuring that NHIMA survives, and where it's overwhelmed, government comes in and addresses that. And OPP government will do that.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Mushimba. I want us to move now to the section just to remind the people we are discussing the politics of health. If we ignored this information around what we expect our political leaders to do on health, often when they get into power, they forget and move on with their own agendas. And as people who are interested in this sector, we really want to talk to each one of them and in the end, hold them to account for what they have said to the people. And for you, your people, when you meet your politicians, the MPs, the mayors, ask them, what are you going to do for NHIMA? And that's the thing that we are putting across on your behalf. And now I'm moving to the next segment, which is one of the most heartbreaking thing, Dr. Brian Mushimba, is that the health sector is seen as a corrupt sector in many ways. So people think that the doctors, they get money to give people like space for surgery or to come for surgery, and then that the people have to pay to be seen. That's some kind of like micro corruption, but there's also mega corruption. And for example, at ZAMMSA, where trucks of medicine went missing and no one has been arrested sufficiently in our view. And also this US government, a guy that left, Gonzalez, said a lot of things, and I don't want to confirm or deny. But for me who is listening, it's very difficult when you're a little bit actually enlightened, because you can now look and understand, and especially if the sector is what means everything to you. So every word, every corruption I hear in health hurts me a lot. ZAMMSA is one of them. So Doc, how would you clean the health sector from corruption? At least this ZAMMSA discussion, the drugs, what are you going to do? Because there's already allegations, and also how do you clean that up?
Thank you. So I was speaking to how we have organized ourselves and the weaknesses in our governance systems that give rise to certain decisions that people make that gets deemed as corruption. You know, I spoke before that the OPP, why we advanced ourselves as the alternative in the country is we believe in a certain seriousness of governance. We are advancing the best men and women amongst us with the right skills and track record to lead us, and accompany that with a strict code of conduct that manages conflict. You know, when you have people organize themselves that way and come to serve, there's a certain mindset that comes with that. We are going to reset the mindset to stop in its tracks this corruption that we've seen. Beyond appointing the right people in the right offices is strengthening of laws that prosecute and punish those that are found wanting. That also happened, including decentralizing and decoupling some of these institutions that needs to be independent to properly do the job of prosecuting those that are found wanting. We don't want any political interference in who gets arrested, because all this money that gets lost is money that belongs to us. Specifically to your question, and you reference ZAMMSA, we feel as the OPP that the biggest weakness we've had in the healthcare system, especially to do with drug procurement and drug management, is that we've centralized that in one location. And it's a lot of money and a lot of drugs to procure and a lot of opportunities for mischief. Once we come in power, within 100 days, that centralization ends. We go back to a decentralized system. We break that ecosystem, that corruption ring. Immediately we form government, so that at every local level, people are empowered to draw up the type of drugs they need per district hospital, and that's what you procure. If there's a failure at one district hospital and the procurement system, it's that one failure that needs to be addressed. Unlike today, when we have containers and containers of drugs packed in someone's warehouse, of drugs that probably now have expired, that failure is national and is catastrophic. When we decentralize, we bring more visibility and a spotlight on districts, on local communities. It's easier to manage, it's easier to inspect, it's easier to audit. And then you've hired the right people with the right skills, with the right mentality. You've given them a leadership code of conduct that manages conflict. You can't own a pharmacy while being a procurement officer for government. There is so much conflict there. And our leadership will speak to this at that level. So we address the root cause of these problems and start addressing them. And when we address them and we give examples to people that corruption doesn't pay, and they're prosecuted fairly, and they're sentenced for that corruption, people start understanding that to run government, it requires a level of seriousness and organization that the OPP is offering. We feel for 62 years, we have treated symptoms in this country and not gone to the root cause of many of our challenges. As OPP, with the systems approach, we are saying we stop building on quicksand, because that house built on quicksand will wash away. We redo the foundation with all the right materials, with the right blueprint, by those amongst us that know, that are accountable and answerable to the people. We will address all the systemic problems we've faced: inadequate infrastructure, hunger in community, energy insecurity, and name it and name it. And one other thing that we are offering as the OPP, that others that are running are not offering, is that when we create that foundation and that Zambia, That is starting to look like it's working for people. People are starting to feel food secure, energy secure, employment secure, health secure, and many of these other things that are required for a good, decent society. We will enshrine these in our constitution as rights of citizens, so that every government that comes after the OPP will not neglect taking care of its people and honoring its people and allowing them to live with dignity and integrity.
Thank you very much. I like the way you have, in fact, I was going to come to that. You have promised, and part of the reason we are coming here as people who are so interested in the health sector and also the country is to make people accountable. You have just said that you will enshrine some of the changes in the constitution. Can we hold you accountable to that? Can you promise the people of Zambia that what you have said you will do, and we can come back to this podcast and say, Dr. Brian, you said this and you have not done that? Can you assure the voter, somebody who is just about to decide who they will vote for to help change the health sector? Can you promise?
We are promising this, and you can put us on record that not only are we going to fix our economy and reinvigorate it, but how we govern ourselves is something that has been of a concern for us. And among proposals that we will implement when you give us a chance to lead this country is devolution of power out of the presidency. The presidency is too powerful. We need to move powers into government institutions, allow them to be independent and transparent and stand on their own. We want to make sure that the Constitution, that is a sacred document of the people, gets sent back to the people, because until 1969, the Constitution belonged to the people. If any government wanted to change that Constitution, they had to go to the people via referendum clause, and 85% of the people had to vote on that amendment. In 1969, they moved this Constitution into Parliament. It's very easy to manipulate 156 members of Parliament to pass amendments that don't serve the interests of the people. We as the OPP are promising that the Constitution belongs to the people, it will go back to the people. If it needs to be amended, people organize themselves and amend it with clauses that they want on how they want to be governed, including those proposals that we've spoken about in terms of enshrining additional protections for the people. We are on record that we're going to do that. On top of this, because we're speaking about healthcare and a health nation, in 5 years, the community health financing mechanism will be up and running. That will create a lot of opportunities because of the resources that will be raised to ensure there is adequate financial resources in healthcare to treat all manner of ailments, to capacitate doctors, to bring equipment, to start treating all problems that we are faced with all the specialization, and guarantee a health nation. A health nation then can prosper.
So in the Bill of Rights, we have been wanting to enshrine health as actually a human right there. So are you committing to doing anything about this or not?
That is the commitment, Professor, that the Bill of Rights that needs to be expanded will be expanded under our watch. The Constitution will go back to the people because that's where it belongs. And if they need to change it to expand their rights and other provisions, they will have the opportunity to do that. Government has no business micromanaging its people, subjecting them to laws that are not fairly debated and approved by the people. We want to create an environment where people live with all the freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights. We enhance those freedoms with commitments to guarantee a certain living for the people that brings honor and dignity at household level.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mushimba. I want to close now, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell a non-decided voter who is interested in health, his or her health. What is your last message? What is your encouragement to them?
Our plea and ask is that they consider voting for our ticket. They consider voting for me, Brian Mushimba, on August 13th, 2026, because we're offering a new perspective. We've been treating symptoms in this country instead of getting to the root cause. And there's no one in this race who's speaking to a systems approach that addresses this country where we need to address all these systemic challenges. The OPP has a plan to address this country, to reset this country and take the country in a different direction and trajectory with the right leadership that is appointed on merit, full meritocracy, who will find the best men and women amongst us to lead us with their expertise and their track record in whichever corner of government they will be placed. We will make sure that they're held to account and the leadership code of conduct is implemented. We will make sure that when we grow the economy, when we reinvigorate the economy and create the 4 million jobs that I spoke about, when government gets close to the people and provide all the necessary ingredient for people to thrive, when the healthcare is capacitated and the required financing mechanisms are implemented as per our manifesto, as per what we've been speaking to, we are going to have a country that works for everyone, a country that its citizens are united and healed, a country that citizens feel they are seen and they are heard, and a government that works for them. We have a track record as the OPP and the leadership team to deliver this Zambia, and we ask that on August 13th, 2026, you consider us and vote for us, because Zambia needs to develop in our lifetime to the levels that others have, that were provided serious leadership by those that stepped forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brian Mushimba, for that interview. Just want to speak to our listeners. Thank you for joining. This is the politics of health, and we are bringing to our fold and our discussion leaders who are vying for taking us to another level. And in this episode, we were privileged to invite Dr. Brian Mushimba, who has explained very well what they are planning to do for the people of Zambia. We look forward to bringing more other candidates here to explain to us what they will do. And we are focusing on health because that's our bread and butter. Our careers from the beginning to the end will always be health workers. And we think that a health nation can develop. And this is the opportunity for us to put the health on top of politics, because that's on the way that Zambia will develop. This is an important ingredient. So I want to thank my guest, Dr. Mushimba, for coming through and just expounding for us. Please look forward to the next episode as well, as we discuss many more good stories around health. And if you've got any other questions that you would like me to address and put to your political leaders, or you've got your political leader that you think has got answers and they want to come to our podcast, please invite them. Because for us, this is our job. We want the people of Zambia to be in health. And we know that the health of the people is decided by the politicians. So we have to be ahead of the game, ask them and let them commit to helping us. And we have to hold them accountable. Even when you are making choices, who are voting, ask them, go to your MP, ask, what are you going to do about our clinic? What are you going to do about vaccination? What are you going to do about corruption? What are in the health sector? And you can also translate the same way as a template to the other sectors. Hopefully we can have an enlightened population and also making our leaders accountable. This is something that we need to do. We don't have a choice. God bless. My name is Professor Wilbrod. Bye for now.